Patio Ponderings with Kath and Misha. Thank you to the BC Centre for Palliative Care for making this happen. And I'd like to now have Misha do a short reflective piece. So just enjoy.
So during the presentation, Kath will talk in more detail about deeper self-reflection, but we also felt like it was part of our skill in working in providing care to be able to very quickly self-reflect in a very simple, non-complicated kind of a way. So, and always better to practice things in our body than just to think about them or have them as an idea. So if you would come, like I did, just a little bit forward on your chair so that you can really feel your feet on the ground and you can really feel your the bones in your bum on the seat that you're sitting on, and just put your feet in a position where it feels like it helps to support you to be in a nice upright position without having to work very hard at that. You can leave your eyes open, or if you have a pleasant urge to close them, you can close them. And take a moment simply to feel how you are right now. How you are right now in a very physical way. Are you tired? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Is your body comfortable or uncomfortable? Just noticing that. No judgment, just curious about how you're feeling. Take a moment to notice your breath. Are you breathing? Are you aware of your breathing? And how is your breathing? Is it quick or slow? Shallow or deep? Jagged or ragged or smooth? Just noticing your breath coming into your body and leaving again. And take a moment to notice your mood. Are you feeling happy, grateful, joyful, sad, scared, frustrated, irritated? And again, no judgment of what you're discovering, just noticing. How am I? And then whatever you've discovered, let your attention come back to your breathing. And let's just take 5 deep breaths together, just breathing in and breathing out. Don't worry about making those breaths big. Just let them slide in through your nose, down into your lungs. Every breath massages our heart, helps to strengthen our nervous system so that it can be more resilient. And when you've had your 5 deep breaths, just give your body a little stretch as though you just woke up from a really good nap. Just a little yawn and stretch, a little reset for the body, the mind, and the heart.
What a lovely exercise to do just as you're heading in to see a client or in between. I guess I was thinking in the community in between clients.
In the car, in the bathroom, in the linen closet.
In the linen closet. And when you're getting agitated and anxious about something and you're scared, just do a reset. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about self-reflection to support grief and growth. And we acknowledge that COVID has brought so many losses. And we'll identify at the very beginning just a few of those losses. We'll talk about grief as a natural way to adapt when we've experienced a loss, and self-reflection as a way to choose growth. And I love these ideas because sometimes we think about loss and grief as only being a negative, and we get lost and forget the positive. Years ago, there was a curriculum that was developed. They were attempting to develop it for schools in Ontario, and the program was called Loss, Grief, and Growth, with the idea that if we can teach kids about loss and grief and growth, that maybe that might decrease some of the expectations that PTSD is always the outcome of hard things, or for some people might have thought that. So a few of the losses: loss of your ability to follow daily routines. And we sure heard that from a few people in the kitchen table chats in May about some of the things that they were no longer able to do. Loss of health and the fear that we were going to lose health, especially if we got sick. Loss of identity, in particular surrounding work. And for many of us, work and what we do is part of our identity. Loss of human physical connections. I think of those people over the months who've talked about not being able to go and do face-to-face visits and how difficult that was.
Not to be able to touch the clients that they would be used to touching because they weren't allowed to be that close to them.
Yes, and not allowed to show their face and connect with smiles, and so then people started putting big pictures of themselves on here so people could see who it was that was behind that mask. Loss of jobs or financial security. And then there was somebody who wrote about what they'd been doing and adapting to growing at this time. And she said, I've been too busy. I've been working full time and someone else and overtime. Loss of sense of personal freedom, being told things like wearing masks or being told you can only work at one facility. Loss of opportunity to participate in so many activities and unable to celebrate milestones or traditions. Loss of control, loss of ability to say goodbye to someone and not being able to be there not only when they were sick, but when they were dying, and not even able to gather for funerals. So many different things that we've experienced, and we need to acknowledge them. So regardless of the kind of loss, we acknowledge that loss is loss. And grief is the natural, healthy, adaptive, whole person way that we adapt to loss. And I love this definition because years ago, I think, I'd experienced lots of loss and grief as a teenager, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. So that it wasn't foreign to me. But the idea of losing Ted, my very dear hubby, and partner in so much of my life, the idea of losing him was really overwhelming. And then as I read one book in particular on grief when I was studying for my thanatology degree, which study of death, dying, and bereavement, and one of the definitions of grief, just about it being natural, healthy, and adaptive, made me just feel so much better. And then as I went through this, I just felt like I can do this. I can do this, whether I want to or not, but I can do that.
Doesn't mean that it feels good, but our body, if we don't get in the way, actually knows how to grieve. And now we know this now with complicated grief, that people who get, who have the most trouble with grief are people who get stuck in some aspect of this natural process, like don't want to allow the hard feelings or don't want to allow the memories.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to just talk about a couple things about grief. So if grief is healthy, natural, whole person, I had to do a drawing. So this is my artwork. And when you do the evaluations, you do not need to write as one person did one year. This presenter could use art lessons. But so this goes to show you. So this person is the orange lines, and I'm just wanting to show you some of the places that people might hurt. So the heart, of course, we can feel. In fact, our heart can pain. Our gut, our stomach. If people get sensitive, if they have sensitive guts, they might feel nauseated, or they might throw up, or they might feel just not like eating, or they might feel bloated, or they might get constipated, or they might get diarrhea, any of those things. And the legs, the weakness in the comments on the legs, or the little orange yellow lines on the legs, are to show that the legs might feel weak. They might not feel as strong. They might feel achy. The yellow on the head is to show headaches or pressure or migraines or just not being able to think, the brain just not working. And of course, I hope you recognize that those little dots under the eyes are tears. So might cry, might not cry. And then the halo overhead, which is crossed off, is not to say that
Not
the person's
saintly.
not getting, maybe not that they're not saintly, but maybe their communication with divine sources or inspiration just doesn't feel like it's there. And then the person over on the right side of the screen is a friend who's reaching out, and the yellow cross out line is saying, just not able to make the connection. And the hands that are yellow are just not able to reach out and not able to do the things they normally do. And I got to tell you, it was so funny when I did this the other day, and all of a sudden I thought about myself, and I thought, oh my goodness, that is a picture of me right now. And I thought about how muscularly I'm not as strong as I normally am. And, anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
Turned out to be a self-reflective
Yeah,
self-portrait.
I guess I could put that as the self-portrait. And what I like about that is I'm laughing about that. And grief doesn't mean that we don't laugh. Sometimes people say that children grieve differently than adults because they can laugh or cry 1 minute and then play the next. But really, adults should be the same or could be the same. So here's my next art drawing. The person on the left is somebody that really is having a hard time just moving. And then the person on the right, or on the middle, is just task-oriented and getting lots done. And then the other person is just kind of existing. And this is all just to say that we're all different in how we do it. And lately I've been joking that we've had a loss in our family and a death of our son. And I've joked that my husband accomplishes enough for both of us, and I cry enough for both of us, so that we're a great team. And somebody had said to me a while ago that people grieve differently, and I said, yeah, I know. And I think that they were worried that we would have problems with the fact that we grieve differently, and that's just not an issue, because of these things, these simple principles that we've just talked about, are foundation pieces to helping us then grieve healthy. And this is my favorite drawing that I did that morning, that grief is messy.
There's not a tidy little set of stairs or something,
or stages,
like rungs or stages that you're going to accomplish.
Yeah.
But a big tangled mess.
And maybe you're okay about one loss today, but the fact that, so I remember somebody, he was fine about dying. That was not a problem. But the fact that he was getting his driver's license taken away from him, whew, he was mad about that. And there could have been another day, a month later, a day later, whatever, that those flipped around. And that is the fact that grief is messy, and that's okay.
And I think part of what you're saying underneath too is just that it's okay to feel what we feel. Like we're going to feel our losses however we're going to feel them, and that's okay. And we're going to react to them however we're going to react to them, and that's okay. And another person having that same experience might react completely different.
Yeah, and that's okay. So it's no wonder then that people are talking about not being very productive during COVID. Now, in the background, you might hear a little bit of music from next door, and we have an artist who lives next door, and she is loving this COVID time because she is able to sculpt, she is able to create. So she's one of about 2 people maybe that I've talked to who really has felt very productive. But the reality is loss and grief can lead to growth. And that is my hope in my life, and it's our hope in this presentation to suggest that grief is about helping us adapt. It is, and adapting and change is all about growth. So Misha has this great quote that we can't go outside with COVID. At one point we couldn't. So we can't go outside, but we can always go inside.
And that comes from Susan David, who's a psychologist, who's really interested in what she calls emotional agility. So
emotional agility.
How do we be agile and be able to adapt?
So we need to add her name in here, but that's wonderful. And we will also add her name to the resources.
Awesome.
And I had gone blank on her name. So self-reflection is one way to choose growth. And reflection can bridge the inner and outer world, can connect our thoughts, connect the dots, stimulate learning, and turn thoughts into action or no action. So some examples of self-reflective activities could be journaling, breathing, meditation, yoga.
Running,
Oh,
swimming, like anything
swimming.
that gives us a space to check in with ourselves.
Mm.
Maybe in a really kind of more formalized way, like journaling, and maybe just because we have some time with ourselves.
Lovely. So I did go for my swim in the ocean the other day. It was so beautiful. Kobe and I, my nursing buddy and me, we went down to Mackenzie Bight, and it was so beautiful. And we swam a little ways off of shore, and then Kobe said, I see something big that just came out of the water. I think it might be a sea lion. We should swim closer to the shore. I said, I just never think about what's under the water. There's some things you can reflect on, and there's some things that I just don't
want to know.
So reflection is the art of thinking about your thinking while you're thinking in order to make your thinking better or more clear or more accurate or perhaps more reflective of where you're at. That's kind of a fun quote. I have no idea who R.W. Paul is. I came upon this quote years ago, and I do like it. So journaling is very individual. It can be structured or non-structured. It can be free writing. You can use a writing stem to get started. It could be daily. It could be weekly. It could be annually, or it could be as needed every decade, whether there's something's happened or not. So today, we invite you to participate in the 2020 Patio Ponderings Writing Challenge.
Say that 3 times fast.
Patio Ponderings Writing Challenge. Oh, I forgot the 2020. And we would, you are more than welcome to report back in on this. And Kathleen, maybe if she's shown up, Kathleen will be able to tell us if you submit something by September 15th, if you're in line for one of the prizes that didn't get used for the other Patio Ponderings Challenge. So here's your challenge, a 4-day writing challenge. For 4 days, choose a time to write, set the alarm clock for 10 minutes or more, but even 10 minutes can accomplish lots. It's amazing. Use the writing stem for the first line of your writing journal for that day, and I'll give you some writing stems in a minute. Write for 10 minutes and follow the writing guidelines. So we're going to have you write for 2 or 3 minutes in just a second after I give you the writing guidelines and the writing stem. So if you're listening to this live, then pull out pen and paper. And if you're listening to the video, then just pause this and get a pen and paper. And you can actually pause this for 10 minutes after we give you the writing stem. So the whole idea is this particular 4 writing stems are positioned in such a way to help you do some reflecting and to look at the bigger picture, to drill deeper, maybe in a couple things, and then to look at the bigger, or to look at some of the positives and to move forward. So when you're writing, this is really important. Naomi Goldberg wrote this, I think, in her book, Writing Down the Bones, and great title. And she says, when you're writing for this kind of free writing, you want to keep your hand moving. So you put the pen on the paper and you just keep writing. Lose control. Just don't worry about what you're writing. It could be, oh, I forgot to stop and get lemons for lemonade this afternoon. Oh, and speaking of that, I was thinking I sure miss getting together with my friends. And speaking of that, I forgot that my friend's birthday was today. So it could start with anything like that. Just don't even worry. Just let it come out. Be specific. If you think about lemonade and you think about the fact that right on the other side of this house, just outside of Victoria, Ted has some lemons, 2 lemon trees and a lime tree growing. So if you want to do that and mention those incredible blossoms that come out all year long on the lemon tree, do that. Be specific. Quell the critic. You don't need to say, oh, I shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have written that. Just get in there and do it. Be easy about spelling or grammar. Don't worry about it. This is when you get to just You don't even have to finish the words. You can just say it, write it enough that you can know what it means and just go on. Feel free to write junk and go for the jugular. So if there's something you want to say, just go. So the 4-day writing challenge, the first one is challenges and losses that I have experienced during the pandemic include. And I included the word pandemic because, you know, I sometimes call this the COVID craziness, but this is a pandemic. I hope it's the only pandemic I lived through in my, no, I hope it's the only pandemic that I get to witness in my life.
Your long life.
My long life. And so let's call it what it is. So the challenges and losses I've experienced during the pandemic include da 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 da. And so write those words down and then just let it go. During the pandemic, I have learned da 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 da.
And so that would be on your day 2.
That would be day 2.
Okay.
Day 3 would be I have been sustained and strengthened by da 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 da. And I am inspired and or grateful for whatever. So, and then on day 5, you could even reflect on just what that process had been. And maybe you might want to go back and look at the journal writings. Julia, who wrote The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, I think her suggestion is you write, but you don't go back and look at it.
Anytime soon anyways.
Yeah, that would be something way down the road. But this might be a fun one to, on day 5, to go back and look at. And then that would be a good one to send to Kathleen.
You were talking about grief as affecting us all in our whole system. And so you could be writing about any parts of that as well. You could be writing about what you're thinking about things, but you could be writing about what you're feeling, or the fact that you're feeling really nauseated, or
the fact that you just don't want to connect with people, or
whatever it is.
Yeah, or the fact that the halo is either missing or it just seems blocked. Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about if it's a whole person experience, social, emotional, physical, intellectual beings. Okay.
And nothing off the table.
Nothing
you can write
off
about
the table.
anything.
Could be your sex life. My sex life? All right. So what our invitation for you to do today is to take just 2.5 minutes and just put your pen on the paper and start with we're going to start with day number 2, because day number 1 seems like to start with day number 1 and then to cut it off when you're just in the middle of writing this long list of who knows what. So we're just going to have silence for 2 minutes. During the pandemic, I have learned. So here's your paper.
Thank you.
Here's my paper. And I'm going to, we'll write and we'll stimulate our writing and go. Okay, just another half minute. All right. So welcome back. I didn't ask you in advance, would you be excited about identifying something or reading just what you're reading, all of it? Or sentence of it or
Sure.
anything?
It was interesting, actually. I was just trying not, as you had said, just not to censor at all what I was writing. And I said, I've learned the importance of kindness. I've learned that I can tell if people, myself included, are having an effective self-care practice or not.
Ooh.
I have learned what it feels like to be impatient and crabby a lot, which is not a normal state for me. And I've learned how privileged I am relative to so many other people.
And that great quote from Bonnie Henry about, yes, we're in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. Pulls at your heartstrings, doesn't it? So thank you. Thank you. Spur of the moment.
I'm glad I wrote something that was not, I'm glad there were some subjects I did not write about today.
Yeah. So, and then what do we do after? Well, we can write and then we can ponder. Sometimes we might want to share, and then we can write some more and we can ponder some more, and maybe we want to share.
Or not.
And one of my colleagues, I tried to put something in a book that I could take a picture of for you, but my writing is so messy that I just didn't think. But Terry Downing has this, she has this journal, and she convinced me to do blank journals instead of line journals. And she'll do blank journals, like the big black ones, and sometimes the smaller ones. And she will then write in her gorgeous handwriting. And then she'll do spider maps, and she'll draw pictures, that she's seen. And the research shows, and one of the studies that we're going to give you at the end is a link into an article about journaling during COVID. And from there's some really good research that also shows, and it appears that that combination is good, but using the writing is also really important to give voice to the emotions.
Not just to write about the emotions was not as effective, and not just to draw wasn't as effective. It was that connection of the emotions and the thoughts, or the images and the thoughts, that led to the growth.
Yes, yeah. So some excellent resources there on that site. And by the way, if you check it out, it's from the Greater Good. What's the rest of that title?
They've got some great articles on that website.
Greater Good something out of Berkeley, California, and they've really often come up with really good, lively, life-affirming, interesting, good resources. So another good resource for you to know about. So the whole goal with reflection is to be able to have, if the goal is, maybe one goal is to have that simplicity and that clarity. This is a beautiful photo taken by my niece Sasha Lees, and it just has such lovely clarity, and it's so inviting. And sometimes my life can feel so cumbersome and confusing, and journaling, reflective writing is one way to help get clarity.